My user experience designing started back in the late 70s when I wrote a calendaring program for my home. My mom took a look at it and complained. I wasn't too happy. After losing the argument with her and redesigning it her way, I realized she was right. Usability really counted. In 1986, I began to work at Micromed Technologies. We had already been successfully creating scheduling programs for the operating room. We were asked to put the first computers in the OR itself. This was to track inventory as it was being used during the surgery, instead of depending upon the nurse's memories. The software could not interfere or create more work for the nurse. I spent a few days actually watching surgeries. Then I would produce a mock-up screen for the nurse to use to test the flow. My solution included pre-surgery pick list that would show up at the top of the inventory screen. We also found a manufacturer that was making a touch screen we could mount on an all-in-one PC. Special searches were created to include nicknames for the OR implements. For examples, some surgical devices were called Wheaties. We later developed a preference list for the surgeons and nurses. Later on, we were able to add barcode readers and label the implements in the OR. The combination of the user interface design and features of this software made it the choice of Kaiser Permanente, who at the time provided healthcare for over 2 million users. In 1990, I took on a new task, the CI Technology Database. It tracks technology installations, business demographics, and key decision makers for hundreds of thousands of locations in 25 countries in North America, Latin America, and Europe. When a sales executive needed information, they would write up a request and send it to IT. A report would be generated and sent back to the sales executive. The process would take 3 to 5 business days. I was to take this process and allow sales executives to do it for themselves. There was an interface built to connect the users to the data via modem with some simple search capabilities. I took what had been done and simplified a few calls with the F keys, filling in a report template. Adopting Windows and learning Visual C allowed me to create drop-down boxes so that the users would not have to deal with 0 results because of misspellings. Next, we introduced LAN and WAN capabilities for core speed and a portable solution in the form of a CD. Again, the interface was important. I examined what our salespeople were doing and made that a part of their opening screen, later calling it a dashboard. As technologies changed, the interface was updated to take advantage of things like color, icons, and images. The back end did not have to change much since it was bringing the same data, but the front end changed for the use of the sales executive. We also created a pop-up screen that would autofill a search when a word or phrase was highlighted and an F10 key was pushed. With many usability studies under my belt in the B2B market, I decided I wanted to work more with consumers. Ziff Davis had announced internally that they were producing a new magazine with Disney called Family PC. I wrote to Jake Weinbaum, who was the creator of this new magazine and would later become the president of Disney Publications. My idea was to get real families to rate software. You see, I didn't believe the writers who were talking about children's software today, or at that time. I felt that a real family knew more about it. Little did I know he had the same idea. I was placed with Digital Research, who was contracted to do family studies. I was to come up with a survey and a rating system, also a method by which we could get unbiased family ratings and keep it under cost. I also had to get software companies to provide software to the families. After a year or so, the internet came around. This allowed us to collect data electronically. Since the internet was brand new, family usability would be hard. Modems were being used to access the internet. I had created a plain one-page survey. This proved to be a better solution to most surveys that were one question per page, even at a 9600 baud modem. Even when speeds improved, our study showed users perceived a study to be shorter when there were not as many pages. The family-tested studies measured out-of-the-box experience, usability, and fun factor. With our success in the online world, Digital Research attracted many large companies who wanted to take advantage of the online experience we were creating. We had collected a large panel that was more representative of the typical household. Pepsi wanted to port the paper study they had been doing in malls for some time. The paper study involved hundreds of beverage SKUs. The question was, would a user complete the long task and would it match the paper study result? I asked various questions about what was really wanted. I came up with a smart survey that would eliminate choices based on user preference so that the user would not encounter fatigue by answering repetitive questions. It worked. The studies brought back the same results and Pepsi was able to use the internet for future studies. Epcot Center at Disney World asked Family PC to submit a design that would guide guests through a new exhibit they would call the Digital Living Room. We were thrilled to be a part of that and presented a design that would zigzag guests past a display of interactive exhibits and finally into the living room, which connected all the technologies into the home. Guests could decide to exit or to continue to an interactive station where they would experience software for the family. The design was such that new technologies and software could be easily updated without closing the exhibit. Family Fun magazine wanted to know if an online panel could be used to predict how well a cover would do on a newsstand. This is known in the physical world as a clutter study. The basics were to show a user an image for 3 seconds and ask what magazine they saw. Then choose from 9 covers and rate them. Later we were able to show random headlines with random covers. This became the first study ever to have online conjoint analysis. Disney was skeptical at first, but after predicting the top newsstand sales for 3 months in a row, the decision was made to continue with it. We were also able to allow the client to drop in images and titles on their own and produce a study within minutes. In 2005, users had become more health conscious. Hannaford wanted to highlight their healthy choices. We learned that although this was true, users did not shop in the health food section. This led to a study where we let our panels shop virtually for food. The user would view the aisle and pick out the food and read the label, then put the food in the cart that they wanted. I used a 3D program to generate blank cans, boxes, and bags. Then I used Flash ActionScript to randomize the products. I also randomized the labels on the shelf. The real study was to see if various labels would attract customers to buy the product. It paid off and Guiding Stars was born. Shortly after that, Pepsi again came to us to see if varying the type of fountain containers would sell more product. We used the technology that we had learned from shelf studies and we reproduced the fountain drink display and let our panel add it. As a sub-study, we randomized the placement of various SKUs. Fast casual restaurants were now able to sell more fountain drinks, a high profit item for them, by varying the drinks and placement for the type of restaurant. Users have never been so connected. The technology most used is in the palm of their hand. The user experience has become much more personal. The devices allow you to make gestures, tilt and touch, and use voice commands. But just because you can do that, it doesn't make sense to do all of that. A good user experience is unobtrusive. It takes a user's natural moves and flows and allows the user to take command.